this is not an intellect problem for my clients. It's the fact that they have disconnected from their body. So we need to support you in learning how to use your mind, your emotions, your body all at the same time. That's where the best leadership comes from. That's where connected, amazing, present relationships come from, health comes from. That's what I love helping people transition into.
So I know we're going to talk a lot about a lot, Leslie, when it comes to just how do we get through our goals and can we use either hypnosis or maybe there's some neural pathways. Am I even saying it right? Neural
Yeah, you are.
Okay, cool. To understand how we can frame our approach to goal setting and make progress in our lives. And I want to approach it from a leadership perspective. So we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. I will let you kind of dive into your background and share how you got started and what your journey has been thus far.
Yeah, that sounds great. One of the things that I remember that had you even invite me to be here was because I said what I've found with working with so many leaders and business owners is that the same thing that got them successful is also the reason why they're so unsuccessful with like health and relationships and that. So, however you want to guide us. But yeah, just in case you hadn't remembered that, I just want to give value to your audience to just kind of take care of themselves and also become better leaders, find more purpose in their life,
It's
all the
a
things.
holistic approach. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I definitely remember that. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
Well, let's dive in. So I'm so excited to have you, Leslie. We've been planning this conversation for months now, ever since we met at PodFest. Shout out to the folks at PodFest for putting us all in great rooms together and being able to share our knowledge. I love meeting folks who have very different approaches to how they're helping folks in their leadership. And leadership is all of our life, right? It's not just our work life. And you and I connected over that understanding that there's a holistic approach to how we can support ourselves and be better leaders in our personal as well as work life. And a lot of it comes down to health and that sort of understanding. I've always sort of been taught that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And then you and I chatted, it's not really the case. And I have to say that's not even the case for me too. We can all sort of be a little faulty, whether it's our discipline and eating right or exercising right. So before we get into all that, I know we'll dive a little bit deeper into everything that you do and how you help coach people. Share your journey with us and your background and what has brought you into this world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for supporting leaders and finding purpose and becoming the best leaders possible. I think our world needs more of them, more conscious leadership. So for me, first of all, the fact that I do hypnosis at all can, for some people, it's like skeptical or weird, especially as business owners, leaders, all of that kind of stuff. But my background professionally is nursing. I used to work in the neuro and surgical ICU. And I'm really more about the science of how hypnosis actually works to help us become more effective leaders, to produce results faster, quicker, easier, towards what we want, towards making the impact that we came here to make. And I got programmed in my mind early that the power of my mind was big, and it was very simple. When I was 12, I had a headache. It was during a family party. My aunt said, "Do you want to get rid of the headache without Tylenol?" I didn't know what the heck she was talking about because my family always just gave Tylenol for headaches, but I said, sure. She had me close my eyes. She had me imagine going right into the center of where I could feel the pain of the headache. And she asked me, "What color is it?" And she asked me, "What shape is it?" And she asked me, scale from 1 to 10, how painful is it? And on and on. And then she just simply asked me to open my eyes after I did that. And to my great surprise, as a 12-year-old, my headache was gone. And so the early things that happen to us in our life really pave our belief systems and who we end up being. So I think it became easy for me that as I was going through life and I had a lifelong struggle with food, body, and weight, that once I heard about hypnosis, that I was open to it and had big impact. Now, from a leadership standpoint, I was always a high performer, so I ticked all the boxes. I knew all the things. I was always successful, great ICU nurse, kidney transplant nurse, like on paper, and to other people, it's like, look at her go. On the inside, did not feel quite the same way. And it manifested around a lot of anxiety about my body. And I would try to manage it. I was a personal trainer, so I was worked out and did all the right things. But yeah, once I experienced hypnosis in that way for myself, and saw immediate shifts as far as not thinking about food all the time and not, overindulging or being scared to go to a picnic or a barbecue and what am I going to eat and what am I going to wear? It got me so fascinated by it. If I could do that overnight, what else can I do? And that have had me go after all my training in neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnosis, NLP coaching, and now I certify leaders in all four of those modalities. That does enhance their business, their sales, their leadership skills. But when they actually get in there, what moves them the most is how they begin on the trajectory of understanding themselves, their purpose, um, you know, yeah, what's the point of it all? And that ends up trickling out into every area of their life, health, relationships. Because at the end of the day, it's all about relationships, how to be the best human being we can be. But it really starts by understanding ourselves at a really deep level first.
Wow. You summarized that so beautifully, Leslie, and that is at the core, the relationship. And if you're not in a healthy relationship with yourself and you're not taking care of yourself, then it's very hard to be a leader taking care of other people.
Absolutely. A burnout is real,
Yeah.
and, secret addictions, secret obsessions. It's happening with leaders all the time. At this point, I just know that the more successful someone is, which I think is what I said to you at Podfest,
Yeah.
the more challenges that are underneath the surface, the more trauma that is actually underneath there, whether it's a huge trauma or a small trauma. Um, but I just like to have leaders know that they're not alone and that there is a way, and it's not going to have everything get destroyed or right. You're just going to become the next best, better version of yourself
Yeah.
as a result of doing this work.
What are some of the most common challenges that you see leaders are faced with or grappling with sort of behind closed doors that you've been able to primarily focus them on coming up with solutions and better pathways?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of getting to really know and work with business owners that are actually dentists in the last few years. Yeah, there was actually a dental podfest section. So when I met you, there was also, I was going to that as well. Really amazing industry. I just have so much respect. But anyway, so some of those specific patterns in those business owners that happen to be dentists, people pleasing, procrastination, um, what else? They, yeah, really hard on themselves, really hard on themselves. And, definitely financial fears in the background. They are totally capable of making large amounts of money, but as if there's a dip or there's a really tough, like it's like very traumatic and very upsetting. And definitely relationship issues, you know. Yeah. And so what we find is the same thing that develops people to be great leaders. So if we think about it, and anyone listening, you can think about it as a leader, how were emotions dealt with in your family of origin? For myself, for a lot of my clients that are very successful, you would never know, that they were struggling with anything internally. Either they had emotionally unavailable parents, emotions were punished, go to your room. Um, and again, whether it's, a huge thing or a small kind of covert hidden thing, at some point we learned it was unsafe to feel or we'd be rejected if we did. And then we create other patterns and coping mechanisms to not feel because feeling is not safe. So that oftentimes creates a pattern of getting really smart, understanding everything, figuring things out, which is all that's required to run a business and be a leader. And we celebrate that. That's amazing. If you didn't have that parenting, that upbringing, you wouldn't be the leader you are today. And the flip side of that coin is relationship challenges, health challenges, internal struggles and battles. So the good news is get to understand that anything you're struggling with, if it's been something you've been working on for so long, and you ask yourself, like, I'm so smart, I've been able to achieve all this stuff, how come I haven't been able to figure that thing out, whether it's weight loss or smoking or some kind of addiction or obsession or whatever, it's most likely an emotional problem. You are trying to solve an internal problem with an external solution, and you will never be able to solve an internal problem with an external solution. So obviously in my world, it's like the diet is part of the problem because it's not actually working on the inside. So, also if emotions were put to the side, it's like, okay, then maybe I'm not worthy was an unconscious thing. I'm not good enough. So then there's that constant lifetime striving for more and have to show up or else. Again, that's what leads to the burnout. So if we teach you and give you the tools for how to master your emotions, that's where the integration happens. So this is not an intellect problem for my clients. It's the fact that they have disconnected from their body. So we need to support you in learning how to use your mind, your emotions, your body all at the same time. That's where the best leadership comes from. That's where connected, amazing, present relationships come from. Health comes from. That's what I love helping people transition into.
Leslie, this is really deep work that you're talking about too. And I can imagine it's very sensitive because you're talking about people's connections to their past. And you mentioned some might have traumas, some kind of sensitivity around that. So everything that you're doing is incredibly important. And I can only imagine the positive impact that's having. At the same time, I can imagine it's hard for folks to get to a point where they might recognize they need your specific help that you can give them, or maybe come to terms that that's the help that they need too. I'm curious, do a lot of clients see it as an intellectual kind of problem or something that is external that they can just solve? And how do you help someone, or what kind of awareness do they have to come to realize, oh, this is the help that I need?
Totally. Absolutely. Great question. So I would say that after they have a conversation with me or they listen to my podcast enough, they start to get present to the fact that this isn't an intellectual problem. But the reason they're stuck is because they're trying to intellect their way through it, trying so hard to figure it out because that's what we do as leaders and business owners. We figure everything out, but we can't figure it out with thinking, at least the level of thinking that you have going on currently, which is just as the result of your upbringing and what you can see. So it's a wiring problem. Um, so yes, I have master classes, I have my podcast, I have all sorts of things to help them start to realize that this isn't your intelligence. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just we can't solve this with the mind, unfortunately.
But your value isn't diminished in not being able to figure it out with a quick brainstorm or a new task management system or here, let me write my goals on the whiteboard. Yeah. So anyone that's feeling that, please listen to Leslie's podcast and dive deeper into that if there's some awareness around there to generate. The next step, though, being I've got the awareness, I know that this is something that I need to do the inner work on, I need some help. How do you approach that with folks who are in that now informed stage and they need that help? What do you like? What sort of journey do you take them on, or setting up of expectations and working with you?
Yeah, well, first I'll talk about what's going to naturally happen because, like you pointed to, this work is really deep, it's really real, but I also make it really fun. And just in case people do look up my podcast, like I do focus on weight loss, but I'm going to give a link when we're ready for people that might not be in the weight loss, but have other things because I work with people outside of that. So just wanted to say that. But when it comes, so if we look at this, it's an identity issue, right? The emotional, the identity, it's that unconscious stuff. It's right. That's really causing the stuckness in whatever area of life that you just can't seem to have a breakthrough in, that keeps you up at night. You're, ruminating on it. I had a woman in the masterclass this past week who's like, I scold myself every, she's like, Leslie, I have an awesome life, great, partnership, and I should be happy. But every night I'm scolding myself for not following something perfectly and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, these are the kinds of signs. So anyway, what we discovered, her mom was very critical as she was growing up, and she basically learned it was not safe to show any emotions, and so she created an unconscious coping pattern of internalizing all of her stuff. And what happens is when you don't have an outlet for it because there's no safety to feel, then it causes you to start asking yourself questions of like, what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me. Like it's just right. And then it creates this identity of like, so if you think about it, so as people discover, like, okay, this is not a me issue, this is a feeling issue, you first need to get that in order for you to have a transformation in this area of life that you haven't yet, you must be willing to let go of that old identity. So if you think about it, how would someone who unconsciously believes I'm worthless, I don't have value, something's wrong with me, how much money is that identity going to invest in themselves? Not a lot. You'll invest however much money, right? Infinite in business, in success, in your team. But when it comes to you making a major investment in yourself, when your self identity is, I'm a piece of, you know what? So that's the first obstacle I help them see, is that this is what's required. So as soon as they see that, and then they get to make the choice of like, okay, so how would a woman who knows, or a leader who knows that I'm worthy and I deserve to have a life of happiness and freedom and inner peace, how much would they invest in themselves? And that decision, 45% of someone's transformation, it's estimated, happens when you just make the decision. So people will see immediate shifts in the fact that you're just investing in yourself and going, right? Because that's emotional to go through, like feeling worthless to feeling worthy. And then from there, it just gets fun. So we get to watch to see what unfolds just as a result of you making that first decision in a new direction. And yeah, just unpacking the layers. So one of my clients, we recognized on her call that she was hanging on to a lot of resentment successfully, but she was resentful that she wasn't being paid more at work. She was resentful that her family didn't pay more attention to her. She was resentful she had to take care of her aging parent. And she presented almost like lifeless on the call. Like she was kind of like, you know. And I said to her, I was like, you kind of seem kind, but if you, so I said, what was anger like in your family? And she was like, no, like no emotions were allowed, this kind of thing. And it's like, okay, so I teach about the law of polarity as well. So if we think about it, it's like there cannot, this, so there cannot be a hot without a cold. There cannot be an up without a down. If you have nothing contrasting to compare it to, right, the other one can't exist. So if you have never let yourself touch anger, joy doesn't exist. If you've never let yourself touch sadness, right, happiness doesn't exist. So, yes. So, anyway, so as soon as I pointed out of like, so since you're not allowing anger, that is causing you to stay stuck in this pattern, feel completely miserable underneath the surface. And so we just need to support you in feeling safe enough to feel the anger, not in a way that you're going to hurt anybody else, but in a way that works because you were never taught this. We weren't taught these things about emotions. We should be. Yeah, already. I just did her kickoff call today. She's 1 week into the program. She's like a whole different woman because she just made the decision from I'm worthy. She saw the resentment, took a decision in a different direction. And she's like already learning how to set boundaries, communicate her truth, right? With her boss, ask for the raise, do like
Yeah.
whole
Leslie,
different trajectory now.
that's amazing. And just 1 week in, after I imagine what was probably so many years of
Oh
that.
my gosh. Literally, she said since she was a little girl,
Wow.
again, the stuffing in the emotions and knowing it's not safe, hers was around food, body, and weight,
Hmm.
right? Like the lifetime. But it's like, and so we obsess thinking, oh, it's the food, body, and weight thing. No, it never has been. It's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
So, yes, but it can work for any of those types of things that we're stuck with. Once we see it, take an action in a different direction, and then you will see immediate shifts that are really exciting right away.
That is so exciting, and you're sort of blowing my mind with the idea and understanding that if you have suppressed an emotion, then you haven't experienced really the full opposite positive of that, or just being in that sort of state of mind, it's really eye opening. And I wonder how many of us are walking around not having experienced full joy or holding on to a feeling that's never been really realized because we've not felt that permission to express
That's
ourselves.
that's right. That's why I'm so passionate about helping high achievers, because it's like usually it's the pattern of avoidance
Yeah.
of the emotions, and it's like the chase for happiness, the chase for. There's a pattern that I think can help your audience also to understand what you're pointing to better, of just like you're triggered by something. So even from a leadership standpoint, say, an employee triggers you, right? Something happens. Then you get stressed out in your body, and then you go to seek for whatever your thing is, because that's your way to get out of the stress. So for my clients, a lot of times it's eating the food, but it could be smoking or whatever, or it could be the diet, it could be the right, it could be something that you think is actually the right thing, but the control. So then you do that thing and you feel that instant dopamine, right, release of like, oh, I took the bite of food, right? Like even your audience, if you think about it, if food is your thing or cigarette, right, whatever is your thing, like you can think about, okay, really stressful day, you can feel it in your body. And now think about what, like, imagine you just made the decision to do your thing, either start the diet again or eat the food or whatever. You can immediately feel a shift just by thinking about it. But then it's like, but then the dopamine wears off. And at some point, the rational mind kicks in and says, either, why did you do that? You should know better, you blah 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 blah, right? Or it's just trying so hard, or, oh, here's the other, or is like, or you're like, oh, but it's kind of sad because now I can't eat the way that other people eat, and right, that could, and then you're triggered again, and then the cycle over and over and over and over again. And so, but the way out of that, so this is why the weight loss industry is a 6 billion, $8 billion industry or whatever, because they know that you're going to stay in that struggle. Um, yeah, but the way out of it is to stop avoiding emotion, to feel it. And then the thinking, the craziness goes away. Anyway, you have choice, you have freedom, you have peace.
Uh,
So,
that really
yeah.
resonates, and
Mhm.
very helpful. I appreciate that framework. Tell me if I'm on the right track here, because it used to be for me, it would be a coffee go to, just filling up another cup of Java. And obviously, there's a point to which caffeine becomes ineffective, but also unhealthy, right? And can severely mess with a lot of things in our health. And so instead, I've been replacing that with going on a walk or taking the dog for a walk, just getting a breath of fresh air. Is that a helpful way of approaching it? Should I be incorporating anything else into that?
That's great. Yes. Thanks for that example. So, absolutely, yes. But if what I work on and want for my clients is total freedom. So, we want to get you to a place, if it felt like what you wanted, where even if you did choose the Java, you're not having any mental turmoil about it. Even if your intake for a week was way high because you had a really stressful week, that it's not causing you to go into a tailspin mentally about like, oh my gosh, and this is going to happen because I know the impact. Because that's the thing about us highly intellectual and health conscious people, is like, the science, but at what point does that become not helpful and more hurtful and adding to more stress? So we're letting go of perfectionist mentality and learning how to live in the space of, so we want to get you to a place where job is a financer, the walk is a financer, the deep breath is a financer. And so I just get to choose which one I feel like is the right answer for me in this moment. And no mental breakdown, no constant thinking about it.
That's helpful. So yeah, there's that element that you were talking about, which is the guilt that might be associated with feeling like we're not following through perfectly on what we're expecting of ourselves, I guess, right? Is
Mhm.
that a good way of
Yes, and we can apply this to any mistakes. So if you have that, perfectionist kind of mentality, or right, some of the stuff that might have been caused by trauma of I need to be perfect or else kind of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, any mistake you make in business, a financial mistake, a whatever mistake. Um, yep, being able to just move through that in a whole different way.
That's great, Leslie. That's really helpful. I hope for everybody listening and tuning in, just that you describe it in a way that's simple and practical that we can apply. I'm sure it's a lot harder as we go through it. I'm
Mhm.
actually going to be a little bit more conscious of that now myself too, and eliminate some of that guilt attached. I like to think of myself as a recovering perfectionist
Mhm.
and getting out of that mentality of having to be perfect. So my motto for a long time has been practice makes progress, and still that can kind of mess with our minds. So are there any other pathways that we untangle for ourselves or realign for a healthier approach to some of that perfectionist tendency when
Yeah.
we're showing up?
Yeah, totally. And maybe if this is okay, can I lead us through a little exercise for your audience to get to, because
Yeah,
it's not a mental, it's more a feeling.
yeah, yeah.
I've done this on stages with people, like when I've been talking and they're like, oh my God, my pain went away and my this went away and my that, right, just from doing this. So yeah, give it a shot. So if you feel comfortable yourself, anyone listening, you can close your eyes, take a nice deep breath into your nose, out through your mouth. Good. And do a quick body scan. So notice where in your body is there a location where there is any difference in sensation. So maybe some tension, some angst, some gripping, some clenching. Just trust it could be pain, it could be any sort of discomfort, and just notice where that is. And once you're present to that area, imagine you can travel down into that area of your body now. And imagine you can go right in the center of that tissue. So, not around the tissue, but right in the center. Take your time. Just remind your unconscious mind it's safe to just imagine going in here. Good. And then imagine you can actually pull out a flashlight and start examining the area here. So, what color is it here? Notice what temperature it is. And then imagine you can actually start to move around that area. So, what does it feel like as you walk through that space? Maybe even imagining your bare feet are there and like just really what does it feel like underneath your feet as you're in there? Just reminding your unconscious mind it's safe to feel it all. And then you can ask your unconscious mind, what was the very first time that you felt this same sensation? And just trust the first thing that pops in. If you were to know, was it before, during, or after your birth? And then just ask your unconscious mind to take you to that very first event. Just look down at the event, that very first root cause event. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just allow it to just be whatever it is. Notice what's happening, any memories or thoughts that pop in. And then just asking your unconscious mind, what do you need to learn from this event? The learning that would have that same sensation disappear. Good. And then imagine you can take that learning and go right back down into the event, looking through your own eyes. And check on the sensation. Is it there? Has it disappeared now? When you're ready, you can come back up and then imagine you can float all the way back into the now. And on your way back, allow your unconscious mind to show you any other events that brought up that same emotion, sensation, and clear out that old energy with that new learning all the way back to now. Good. And when you're back to now, you can float into the room, but also notice. So check on that area of your body that initially had that sensation. So, how's that area of your body feeling now? And Rebecca, I'll ask you since we're on the call.
I feel lighter and more open. I was focusing on my shoulders, so for a visual for anyone, just to feel a little bit lighter because I know I keep a lot of tension up here. And it's so common now that I almost don't feel it. So that was so helpful. Wow.
Really good. Perfect. Yeah. So you can come all the way back to now. Great job. So then the idea is so once we feel whole and we're not kind of just like in the survival mechanism of like stress, 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 work, like in that normal pattern of, activated or whatever, we can think clearer, we can make better decisions. Imagine for yourself and anyone listening, like feeling the way that I feel right now. Do I feel like I would be a better parent? Do I feel like I would be better and more present with my team at work, with my significant other? That connection starts with ourselves and our own body, and we can make better decisions, like I said, right? All the things. So yeah, a little taster. And so regardless, because I have a lot of people that are like, well, I don't know. So hopefully, that help people if they had a thought of like, I don't know if hypnosis or that kind of work would work for me. There has never been someone, I honestly think that the more successful they are, the better I can help them, because I haven't met anyone who's been able to be like, I can see right through that pat, you know what I mean? And I can help you anyway. And so, yeah, I really trust myself to lead anybody, no matter how much you think you can't or blah, 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 to have those breakthroughs that make a major difference.
Absolutely. Well, that was a real treat. I'm glad we got to put it into practice right here and now. And I know we have a few minutes left, but it makes me wonder too, what maybe the assumption or misinterpretation of what hypnosis is actually maybe preventing folks from exploring it. Do you want to share maybe a little bit about what it actually is and how it's working, and maybe that'll demystify what it's doing for us?
Totally. Yep. It's all scientific. So when I went to get my master's in nursing, in one of my textbooks was hypnosis. So it is recognized, it is in the medical system, it is in the textbooks. So, yep, for whatever that's worth, it's scientific. Um, and the biggest thing, first of all, it's not mind control. It's not, right, being weak or vulnerable, right? It's none of that. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. Definitely gonna not make you cluck like a chicken or anything weird, even though I could do that for entertainment purposes, but I'm here to help people find purpose and happiness and joy in their life. Um, so yes, all of that there. So the same way that if I was to tell someone to stand up and there was no reason that they couldn't safely do so, they'd probably stand up. You have free will, right? But if I was to tell someone, I want you to cross this busy road blindfolded, you'd immediately hopefully hit me in the face and run the other way. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Like I literally cannot make anybody do anything they don't want to do. The most powerful hypnotist is the one right between your own ears. I also like to tell people, like, consider that you've been hypnotized your entire life, right? With the messages and the thinking that you've been having for decades and decades. But science has now proven that you can actually change the way that you're thinking so you can produce different results. So wouldn't it be better to release those thoughts, behaviors, habits, patterns that are causing you to stay stuck, you know, and maybe sick even, into the ones, that are actually ones. Now, also a co-creation with your hypnotherapist of what do you actually want to create in your life. So it's everything that you're doing, it's what you're deciding, what resonates with you. And yeah, I just get to be your guide to support you in creating what you want. So hopefully that helps people know. It feels just more like a therapeutic, like my style is more, meditative-ish, like you guys got a taste. There's more active types, there's more passive types, there's, you know, I work with people over lengths of time or short periods of time, or right, for all different, depending on what your needs are. So I always co-create, what's going to help people, and just, yeah, meet you right where you're at and do the right amount of conscious and unconscious work that's going to get you where you need to go.
I love that. And Leslie, you make a great point that we've all been conditioned in some way, shape, or form. So it's that unraveling and finding those healthy pathways that it sounds like if anyone were to imagine it being cookie cutter, it's really not, because you're helping that individual person too. And I feel like maybe what I've heard of hypnosis before is that magician on a stage, and it is all falling in line, and you're debunking all of that for us, which is great, and showing us that it's about taking care of the person and the heart of that person, and where they're aiming to go in a healthy way. So I just love how you summarize it so beautifully and explain it for us. And I hope that folks listening can take all that, hopefully practiced with us to some degree, and can follow you in your journey and perhaps work with you too. So, what's the best way that they can get in touch? Where would you like them to follow you and connect so they could work with you?
Yeah, I would say there's a link. It's a little bit odd, but it should be easy enough. It's hpwl.info/NLP and the number one. So hpwl.info/NLP1. And there'll be a way to book a call, gives more information about the results clients see, as a result of working together. And like I said, I don't share any of my pricing or anything publicly because I really do have different, budgets and time frames and whatever. So best way, have a conversation. Let's see what's going to support you the most.
I love that. We'll have the link below for everybody. It sounds like you're able to work with people wherever they're at too, in terms of their status and how they might be able to need your help and work with you best. So I that seems like a very holistic approach, even in and of itself as well. So I love that.
Yep, that nursing part never left. I think one of the reasons I also left nursing was because, there's just hospitalization is a business, and there just wasn't the opportunity to spend as much time as was needed to really help someone who really wants help. A lot of my clients will say, like, oh, I've been talking to my doctor about this for years and no one's ever been able to show me that it's this, and it's like they don't have time. They're not really educated in this. So, yes, I'm glad that it's coming through that this is holistic and yeah, just care about holding space for people to see what they can't see so they can get out of that and live life.
I love it. If there was one summation point, one piece of advice that you could share with everybody, whether they work with you or not, what's the one thing that people could use as a takeaway?
Stop trying to figure it out on your own if you've been stuck for a really long time with something. If you're noticing patterns in yourself of like, oh, I always end up start something strong and then I fail at it, or I always a relationship starts out strong and that, like, start catching on to yourself and stop blaming yourself or shaming yourself, or and just ask for help, because you can't see what you can't see. It's not an intellectual problem. You're not a failure. You're not weak for asking for help. It could actually be your unconscious mind kind of tapping to say, hey, it's time for us to evolve into your next level version. So don't put it off, because we get sick when we put it off. So love yourself, take action for yourself, and trust what happens as a result of you just taking whatever action comes to you.
Amazing advice. Leslie, this has been a really enriching conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. You are welcome back anytime. I know I have so many more questions, so I might need to have you back just so we can explore all of them, if you'll permit it. But I hope it's been helpful for the audience. I know this has been really great for me and a really great treat too, because we don't always get to talk about these topics. So I appreciate you joining me and hopping on, and appreciate our audience for listening. Do check out Leslie and all that she has to offer. And if you feel like you are stuck in that mode, I know that she can help you out too. So thank you all for listening to Bad Bosses, Great Leaders podcast.